34 minutes after I canceled the family vacation I had spent almost $26,000 on, my mother left a voicemail screaming, "The front desk says our rooms are gone." An hour earlier, she had watched my younger brother take the Ocean View suite key out of my hand and tell me I could sleep on his pull-out sofa because a single woman doesn't need that much space. My father had nodded like the decision was already settled. My sister-in-law had turned on her phone camera and said the suite would be perfect for the brand photos she had promised a client. When I reminded them that I had paid for every room, every flight, every airport transfer, and most of the meals, my mother looked me straight in the eye and said, "Money doesn't make you more important than family." I asked the desk clerk one question: "Whose card is holding these reservations?" She answered, "Yours." So I smiled, canceled every booking I was legally allowed to cancel, and walked away while my family was still arguing over who deserved the balcony. They thought I was throwing a tantrum over a hotel room. What they did not know was that I had already seen the hidden group chat where they planned the switch 2 weeks earlier because, in my mother's words, Rachel always gives in once people are watching. By Thanksgiving, they would learn exactly what happens when the daughter who always gives in finally stops paying for everyone else's comfort. My name is Rachel Monroe. I was 35 when this happened, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I work as Director of Operations for a medical software company, which is a dull title for a job that mostly consists of preventing expensive problems before anyone else notices them. I negotiate vendors, untangle scheduling disasters, make sure projects do not collapse because somebody forgot one line in an email, and spend a lot of my life being the person people call when the answer is supposed to be, "Rachel will figure it out." My family had been using that sentence long before anyone paid me for it. I grew up in Greenville, South Carolina, with my parents Linda and George, and my younger brother Jason. He was 4 years younger, and had always been the child who needed more patience, more chances, and more rescuing. I was the organized one. If Jason forgot something, Mom fixed it. If I forgot something, Dad said consequences built character. When he broke things, accidents happened. When I made mistakes, responsibility mattered because I was the capable one. They loved me, but they distributed care according to who seemed least able to cope. Jason learned that somebody would catch him. I learned that needing less was the easiest way to stay lovable. By adulthood, that family logic had become almost elegant. Jason needed help with rent because creative businesses were unpredictable. I did not need help because I had a salary. Jason needed Mom and Dad at his pop-up launch because he was nervous. I did not need them at my promotion dinner because I was confident. Jason needed a bigger wedding because his wife, Kelsey, came from a very social family. I could help because I was single and didn't have major expenses yet. That word yet followed me into my 30s like my life had not officially begun because there was no husband or child attached to it. I built a career anyway. I bought a modest townhouse in Charlotte. I drove the same Subaru for 8 years. I contributed aggressively to retirement because financial security made me feel safe in a way family approval never quite did. Jason eventually started a small brand consulting studio that looked more successful online than it was in real life. His wife, Kelsey, had a growing lifestyle account and could turn any hotel lobby into content. 4 years earlier, when their wedding venue suddenly became too basic, Jason borrowed $9,000 from me and promised to repay it after 1 quarter. I got $300 back, and years of jokes about how I was too corporate to notice. Their own money problems began after Dad retired from a regional building supply company. They were not poor, they simply refused to shrink a lifestyle built around a large house, 2 cars, and a tennis club. When Dad's consulting income slowed, Mom asked me for $1,250 a month. For 1 year. Jason could not help because he had a child. I could because I was single. 1 year quietly became more than 2, and by the time of the vacation, I had sent them over $33,000. The vacation was my idea. Mom and Dad were nearing their 40th anniversary and always joked that they never had a real honeymoon. I had just earned a large performance bonus after an exhausting software rollout, so I booked 6 nights at a coastal resort near Santa Barbara. an ocean view room for my parents, another for Jason, Kelsey, and their 4-year-old daughter Lily, and an oceanfront suite for me because I had 2 mornings of work calls. Flights, transfers, breakfasts, 2 dinners, and spa appointments brought the total to just under $26,000. I sent everyone the itinerary with room assignments in bold. Nobody objected. 2 weeks before departure, Kelsey created a group chat full of outfit plans. Mom also asked whether I could be flexible with rooms if Jason happened to meet a potential client at the resort, then dropped the subject when I asked why that affected sleeping arrangements. At the airport, I saw my name beside the suite crossed out on Mom's printed itinerary, with J plus K written above it. She claimed Dad was confused about room numbers. During the flight, she also gave Jason my aisle seat because he needed to work. I told myself none of it was worth beginning a vacation with a fight. We reached the resort shortly after 4. The lobby was bright, crowded, and full of people wearing conference badges. I went to the desk with my identification and credit card. The clerk confirmed I was the primary payer on all reservations and arranged key envelopes across the counter. 2 for my parents' room, 2 for Jason and Kelsey's, 1 for my suite. Before I touched anything, Dad picked up the suite envelope. "This is Jason's," he said. The clerk looked at me. "The suite is assigned to Miss Monroe." Mom moved closer. "We changed things. Rachel will stay on the sofa with them." I thought I had misunderstood. "What?" Jason took the key envelope from Dad. "It's not a big deal." "Then take your original room. I need the suite tonight." "Why?" Kelsey answered while opening her camera. "Lucas is coming by for drinks before dinner. The suite gives us somewhere private, and the balcony is perfect for a few campaign shots." I looked at Jason. "You invited a potential client into my room." "It's one meeting." Without asking me. "We knew you'd be fine with it." There was the phrase. We knew. Not we hoped. Not we should have asked. We knew. "I'm not fine with it." Mom touched my arm. "Rachel, please. Jason has been under enormous pressure. This client could stabilize his business for the whole year. Then Jason should book a suite." Dad's voice hardened. "Don't embarrass everyone." "I'm not embarrassed. You're making a scene over sleeping arrangements." "I paid for the sleeping arrangements." Kelsey lowered her phone. "The suite is honestly wasted on one person." Jason laughed. "Exactly," Mom said. "You'll have the sofa, your own bathroom, and you'll be with Lily. It's family." I stared at her. "I booked the suite because I'm working 2 mornings. Work from the lobby." Dad said, "You can make one sacrifice for your brother." Something inside me went completely quiet. "One?" He sighed. "Here we go." That tone. The tone adults use when a child repeats herself. "Rachel, you're 35 years old. You're successful. You don't have kids. Jason and Kelsey barely get time alone anymore. Why is everything a fairness issue with you?" I looked at Mom's tote where the blue ink itinerary was sticking out. "How long have you planned this?" Nobody answered. Jason looked away. Kelsey checked her phone. Mom said, "We discussed possibilities. Without me. Because you always turn money into a thing." I laughed once. "That's impressive considering I'm the only person here who spent any." The desk clerk suddenly became very interested in her computer. My hands were shaking, and I hated that. I wanted to be the woman who delivered some perfect line without emotion. Instead, I felt 13 again, standing beside Jason after he broke something and being told I could handle the consequence better. Then Kelsey's phone lit up on the counter with a notification from a chat called Swipe Plan. She grabbed it quickly. Too quickly. I had seen enough. "Can I ask you something?" I said to the clerk. "Of course." "Whose name and card hold all 3 reservations?" She checked. "Yours." "What is the cancellation deadline on the flexible package?" 6 p.m. today for the rooms and prepaid resort services. Flights depend on the fare rules." I looked at the clock. 4:52. Mom's face changed. "Rachel, I'd like to cancel everything that can still be fully refunded." Dad stepped toward me. "Don't be ridiculous." "I'm serious," Jason said. "You can't cancel my room." the clerk answered gently. Sir, the reservation is not under your name or card, Kelsey whispered. Oh my God. I asked to cancel the 3 rooms, the dining package, my parents' spa appointments, and the return airport transfer. I left the original flights alone because we had already used the outbound segment and I did not want to strand anyone. Dad demanded a manager. A manager came. She reviewed my identification, asked whether I was sure, and processed the cancellations one by one. The key envelopes disappeared from the counter. Jason pushed his business card forward. Fine. Book us the suite, the clerk typed. The suite was returned to inventory and has already been requested by a conference guest. We have 2 villas remaining. How much? 3,800 per night, plus taxes and a temporary deposit. Jason went still. For 1 villa? Yes. What about regular rooms? Sold out tonight. Kelsey whispered something I could not hear. Then a man with a conference badge walked past and stopped. Jason? Jason's face changed instantly. Lucas. Hey. Lucas Grant looked at the luggage, the manager, and our family standing around a counter with no keys. Everything okay? Jason forced a laugh. Hotel mix-up. I could have corrected him. I did not. I gathered my refund confirmations and opened a booking app on my phone. There was a comfortable boutique hotel 25 minutes away, with 1 room available. I booked it. Mom followed me toward the entrance. You are really leaving us here? You wanted Jason to have the suite. Now he can arrange one. We don't have that kind of money available on a card. Neither did I until I earned it. She grabbed my elbow. Rachel, stop. I looked down at her hand until she let go. I spent $26,000 trying to give you a happy anniversary. You planned to put me on a sofa so Jason could pretend my suite was part of his success. I'm done making this comfortable. You will regret treating your family this way. I regret teaching you I always would. I walked outside. 34 minutes later, my phone showed 48 missed calls. By the time my rideshare reached the smaller hotel, it was 53. Mom's first voicemail was pure outrage. The front desk says our rooms are gone. Call them right now. Dad's second sounded like a command from my childhood. Turn around. We'll discuss your behavior privately. Jason's fourth was panic. Lucas saw the whole thing. I need you to call him and explain that you got confused about the booking. Kelsey sent a text saying Lily was tired and asking whether I really wanted my niece sitting in a lobby because of adult drama. That one almost worked. Guilt came through me so fast I opened the rideshare app and considered turning around. Then Mom sent a screenshot by accident. She meant to send me a message from Dad. Instead, she captured part of the hidden suite plan group chat. The messages were dated 2 weeks earlier. Jason, Lucas confirmed he'll be there. I need the suite, not the regular room. Kelsey, Rachel will complain, but she won't blow up in public. Dad, once the clerk hands you the key, don't ask again. Mom, exactly. Rachel always gives in once people are watching. Jason, and please don't tell her before the trip. She'll overthink it. Kelsey, I'll post the suite as our anniversary surprise. Better for the pitch. I stared at that screen until my breathing slowed. They had not misunderstood me. They had studied me. They knew public conflict embarrassed me. They knew I would usually surrender to avoid being called difficult. They built the plan around my discomfort. I saved the screenshot. Then I replied to Kelsey. Lily has 2 parents and 2 grandparents in that lobby. I am not the reason no adult there has a room. That was the last message I sent that night. My family eventually found 2 expensive rooms at a highway hotel nearly 40 miles away, rented a car, and lost several reservations Kelsey had booked separately. Dad later sent me an angry spreadsheet claiming my decision had cost them $7,860. The next morning, I added up the major family rescues I could remember: Jason's wedding, my parents' roof and mortgage help, business bills, car payments, and trips. The total topped $118,000. I canceled my parents' monthly transfer, removed Jason from an emergency card, ended the shared phone plan after giving everyone 30 days to transfer their numbers, and stopped paying my parents' tennis club dues. I took nothing from them. I simply stopped supplying it. The resort fallout continued without my help. Lucas canceled his meeting after realizing Jason had presented my family trip and suite as if his company were hosting him. Kelsey also lost a luggage sponsorship after a video blaming a jealous relative accidentally captured Jason, shouting that I had paid for the resort. Their image had depended on my money staying invisible. Once I stepped away, reality did the rest. 3 days after I returned to Charlotte, Mom posted that sometimes the child you sacrifice most for becomes the one who keeps score. When an aunt called to scold me for abandoning my parents, I sent her the original itinerary and the hidden chat screenshot. She apologized 10 minutes later. That became my rule. I would not campaign against my family, but I would no longer protect their cleaned-up version of events. The monthly transfer failed on the 1st of the next month. Dad called at 7:06 a.m. Your payment didn't come through. I canceled it. Why? Because I'm no longer subsidizing the house. Don't be childish. I'm not. We planned around that money. You were told it was temporary. That was 2 years ago. Correct. He was quiet. Then, your mother is going to be devastated. Mom was comfortable taking my suite. This again? That phrase told me more than an apology would have. This again. Less than a month had passed, and my humiliation was already an inconvenience because it had lasted longer than their discomfort. Dad, I'm not discussing the payment. It's over. We'll see. No, you'll see. I ended the call. 2 weeks later, Jason appeared at my office asking for $20,000 because losing Lucas had left his business short on cash. I said no. He accused me of enjoying his problems and reminded me, almost desperately, that I was the capable one. For the first time, I heard the command hidden inside the compliment. Exactly, I told him. So I'm capable of saying no. He called me selfish and left. Thanksgiving was 6 weeks later. Mom invited me 3 times. The first invitation said, "Your father and I think enough time has passed." The second said, "Lily keeps asking why Aunt Rachel is mad." The third said, "If you don't come, people will think you're trying to split the family." I almost stayed in Charlotte. My friend Monica invited me to her parents' house. Then Dad called and said, "Come for one meal. No ambush. No money talk." I asked, "Do you mean that?" Yes, he did not. I arrived in Greenville at noon and immediately saw Jason's car in the driveway. Kelsey's too. Mom hugged me for too long. Dad kissed my cheek. Lily ran into my arms and asked if I had brought her the seashell necklace I promised. I had. Children should not become punishment for adult behavior. Dinner looked exactly like every Thanksgiving of my childhood. Mom's turkey, Dad's carving knife, Jason reaching for rolls before anyone sat down. Familiarity is dangerous when you are trying to remember why a boundary exists. For the first hour, nobody discussed California. Mom asked about work. Dad asked whether my Subaru was finally ready to retire. Kelsey complimented my sweater. Jason barely spoke. I began to wonder whether they had actually decided to behave like adults. Then dessert arrived. Mom placed a pumpkin pie on the table, and Dad cleared his throat. "We need 10 minutes. I laughed quietly. "Of course we do." Mom's face tightened. "Please don't start defensive. You promised no ambush. This is a conversation." Jason pulled a folder from beside his chair. "I need everyone to look at something." "No." He blinked. "You don't even know what it is." "If it involves my money, no," Dad said. "Rachel, sit down." I was already sitting. "I'm listening." Jason opened the folder. His company had lost 2 clients. His partner wanted out. He needed a capital injection or he would probably close by January. My parents had no cash available because losing my monthly help forced them to use savings for the mortgage and club dues. "We're not asking you to give it to him," Mom said. "Just loan it." "No." 30,000, Jason said. "I can pay you back over 2 years." "You still owe me from your wedding." Kelsey looked embarrassed. "That was different." "How?" "We were younger. You were 27. Dad leaned forward. "This is exactly the attitude that concerns me." Family is supposed to help each other recover from mistakes. I took out my phone. Great. Mom's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? I opened the swipe plan screenshot and placed the phone in the center of the table. Read the last line. Nobody needed to. They had written it. Mom looked away. I read it anyway. Rachel always gives in once people are watching. Silence. You plan to use my discomfort against me. Not just Jason. All three of you. Dad said. We already admitted that was wrong. No. You told me I overreacted. Mom whispered. Fine. It was wrong. Why? Why what? Why was it wrong? She became irritated. Because we should have asked. Yes. There. Happy? No, keep going. Rachel, this is humiliating. Exactly. The word landed. I looked at her. You hated being forced to describe it, because saying it out loud makes you feel what you expected me to swallow quietly. Dad said, we thought Jason's client could change his business. And what did you think $26,000 meant to me? You got a bonus. Do you know how many weekends I worked for that bonus? Nobody answered. Do you know I postponed replacing my car? Do you know I've been sending you $15,000 a year while you still pay club dues and help Jason with Lily's private preschool? Mom looked sharply at Dad. I caught it. Wait, you're helping with preschool? Jason stared at his plate. Dad said, only some months. I laughed. Of course. Mom rushed in. They needed it. And you needed my mortgage payment. We're family. That phrase has become an invoice, Kelsey whispered. Rachel, I didn't know they were using your money like that. Jason snapped. Don't. She looked at him. I didn't. I asked Dad how much they had given Jason in the previous year. He tried to avoid the number. Mom finally said around $18,000. My $1,250 monthly support had effectively freed enough money for them to send almost the same amount to the son they insisted had less. I sat back. The pattern was so perfect it almost became funny. I pay the parents because Jason needs help. The parents help Jason because I can afford to pay them. Everyone gets to call me capable while my capability travels in a circle around the table and returns as obligation. I'm done, I said. Mom started crying. You keep saying that. Because you keep treating it like a negotiation. Jason pushed the folder toward me. So you'll let my company die? Your company is not alive because I breathe into it. You have the money. That does not answer the question. What question? Why is your emergency automatically mine? Because I'm your brother. And when I needed one room I had paid for, what was I? He said nothing. I wasn't your sister then. I was the person most likely to surrender. Dad said, one bad decision doesn't erase a lifetime. You're right. They looked surprised. That's why I'm not cutting you out of my life completely. But a lifetime of being the one who handles things does not erase that decision either. Mom said, so what do you want from us? I want 3 things. Stop asking me for money. Stop telling relatives I abandoned you. And stop using Lily as a message carrier. Jason looked offended. We don't. She asked me why I was mad because I wouldn't help Grandpa keep his house. Everyone went quiet. Kelsey turned toward Jason. Did you tell her that? He hesitated. She overheard Mom. Mom whispered. I was upset. I looked at her. She's 4. That's your defense? Dad rubbed his forehead. Okay, we'll stop. Good, Jason said. And my business? Your business will do whatever it does without my money. He stood abruptly. You're unbelievable, Kelsey said. Sit down. No, she's sitting there enjoying this because finally everyone has to admit she makes more money. This has nothing to do with who makes more. It has everything to do with it. He pointed at me. You've always hated that Mom and Dad loved me without me having to earn it. The room froze. Even Jason seemed surprised by his own sentence. My chest tightened. There it was, stripped clean. Not the hotel, not the loan, the thing beneath all of it. I had spent years earning what he received as atmosphere. I looked at Mom. She was crying harder. Dad looked at the table. Kelsey whispered, Jason. I said, "You're right." He stared at me. What? I did hate that. My voice shook, but I did not care anymore. Not because I wanted them to love you less, because I wanted to know what it felt like to be loved without first proving I could carry something. Mom reached toward me. Rachel, we love you. I know, but you trusted my strength more than you protected my feelings. There's a difference. Dad's eyes filled. We thought you could take it. I could. I wiped my cheek. That's not the same as saying I should have had to. No one spoke for a while. The turkey cooled. Lily watched cartoons in the den. The whole house smelled like cinnamon and old patterns. Then Dad said quietly, "I'm sorry." Mom looked at him. He continued, "I did know you would give in at the resort. That's why I agreed to the room change. I thought one uncomfortable night for you was worth a business opportunity for Jason. I didn't think about the fact that the trip itself was your gift." 6 nights, I said. What? It was 6 nights on the sofa. His face fell. Right. You didn't even know. No. That hurt him. Good. Not because I wanted pain, but because understanding sometimes enters through the place excuses used to live. Mom apologized next, badly at first. I never meant to make you feel less important. Intent isn't enough. I know. She looked around the table. I think I got used to you being the one who didn't fall apart. So you gave the soft landing to everyone else. She nodded. Jason did not apologize that day. He left after dessert, angry. Kelsey stayed long enough to help Mom clean the kitchen and quietly gave me a hug. For what it's worth, she said. The sweet plan was wrong. I knew it was wrong. I went along because I wanted the content and because everyone said you'd be fine. Thank you for saying that. I'm sorry. It was the cleanest apology anyone gave me that year. I drove back to Charlotte that night instead of sleeping in my old bedroom. Mom cried when I said I was leaving. I told her, "Going home is not punishment." That sentence mattered because my whole life, their house had been called home no matter where I lived. I was 35. My townhouse was home. My own refrigerator, my ugly couch, the neighbor whose dog barked at delivery drivers. I had a life that did not begin when family needed me. The months after Thanksgiving were quieter and more important. My parents canceled the tennis club, sold their second car, and discovered their crisis was mostly a refusal to downsize. Dad took a few consulting projects and began calling every Sunday. I eventually told him to stop repeating apologies and show me change. He did. He asked before requesting help, and accepted no without turning it into a guilt campaign. Mom struggled longer but slowly learned that missing me was not an emergency I had to solve. Jason and I did not speak for 7 months. Then on my birthday, he mailed me a check for the remaining $8,700 from his wedding loan with a note. I said you were capable because it made taking from you feel less ugly. I'm sorry. I deposited it instead of rescuing him from the discomfort of repayment. When we finally met, he admitted the sweet switch had been his idea, and that once everyone agreed I would give in, taking my room stopped feeling like taking anything. It just became the plan, he said. That sentence stayed with me. Entitlement often becomes invisible once enough people agree to it. He said he would never do it again, not because he lost Lucas, but because Lily was old enough to watch how adults treated people. We did not become close overnight, but we began again as adults instead of a fixer and a permanent emergency. The biggest change was mine. I kept the monthly $1,250 I once sent my parents and automatically transferred it into an account labeled mine, not revenge. Not a dramatic freedom fund, just mine. 6 months later, I finally replaced my Subaru. Nothing ridiculous. A new hybrid SUV with heated seats that made me laugh the first cold morning because I realized I had spent years telling myself comfort was wasteful while financing other people's comfort without question. The following summer, I rented a small cottage on the Maine coast for 2 weeks and worked remotely for part of it. Mom asked whether she and Dad could join for a few days. Old me would have said yes immediately, and then reorganized the whole trip around them. I said, Not this one. I want it to myself. There was a pause. Mom said, "Okay, send pictures." That tiny okay felt more loving than every time she had called me capable. My family still celebrates Thanksgiving together. The next year, Dad raised his glass before dinner and said, "I want to thank Rachel for coming." I looked at him suspiciously. He smiled. "That's the whole speech." Everyone laughed. Jason brought the wine and paid for it. Kelsey kept her phone in her purse during dinner. Lily sat beside me and told me I was her favorite aunt, which was easy because I am her only aunt. Mom gave me the largest piece of pie and did not ask me to solve anything. I know some people will think I should have cut them off forever. Maybe that would have been justified. But self-worth did not require the harshest punishment available. It required ending automatic access. My money stopped being the family emergency fund. My time stopped being assumed. My discomfort stopped being the cheapest resource at the table. I still help sometimes, but only when I choose to. I paid for part of Dad's hearing aids after he asked respectfully. I reviewed one vendor agreement for Jason and charged him lunch. I babysit Lily because I love her, not because anyone uses her to carry guilt. Boundaries did not make me ungenerous. They separated generosity from obligation. The California resort sent me a survey after the canceled stay. I almost deleted it. Instead, I rated the staff 5 stars. In the comment box I wrote, "Thank you for listening to the person whose name was on the reservation." I smiled after submitting it because that sentence described more than a hotel. Most of my life, I had been the name quietly holding everything together while other people decided who deserved the view. The suite was never really the point. The point was that my parents and brother had become so certain I would surrender that they planned around my silence. Canceling the trip was the first time I made my no expensive enough that everyone had to hear it. I do not regret that. I regret how long I believed peace meant making myself cheaper than conflict. So tell me honestly, if you spent $26,000 on a family vacation and discovered your parents and favored sibling had secretly planned to take your suite because they were certain you would give in, once people were watching, would you cancel the whole trip like I did? Or would you keep the reservations and give them one final chance to prove they could respect you?